Is Washington state dying? Are people really leaving this state in droves? Well, if all you do is look at the comments in YouTube videos about Washington, you would absolutely think that the answer is yes, because people love to hate on this state right now. You see the comments everywhere. I'm leaving the rain. I'm done with the politics. The traffic is a nightmare. Or the famous one with the last person leaving Seattle, please turn off the lights. And honestly, I get it. If you've lived here for 20 years, you've seen things change. You remember when traffic on I-5 was actually manageable. You remember when you could buy a house in Ballard for $300,000. Oh, those were the days. You remember when the skyline looked completely different. So when you see the headlines about tech layoffs or rising crime or another tax being proposed, and then you look at your Zestimate and you're sitting on $400,000 of equity, reading those angry comments is terrifying. And you start to think, wait, if everyone is leaving, what is going to happen to the real estate market? Is it about to crash? Is the party over? Am I going to be the last one holding the bag while everyone's sipping martinis in Arizona? Well, I am Leah Courage, and I'm a real estate broker here in Western Washington. And in this video, I am not going to gaslight you. I'm not going to tell you that everything is perfect or that the problems that you see with your own eyes aren't real. Because the truth is, yes, people are leaving. In fact, for the first time in decades, we are seeing domestic migration turn negative in King County. But and this is the but that nobody talks about, someone else is replacing them. And later in this video, I'm actually going to show you a specific statistic about who is moving here that completely contradicts the Washington is dying narrative. It's a demographic shift that no one sees coming, and it's the single reason that your home value is likely safe. In this video, we are going to look at the hard 2026 data. We are going to track exactly how many people are leaving, where they are going down to the specific county, and who is moving in to replace them. And spoiler alert, the person buying your house in 2026 is not who you think they are. All right, let's start with the big picture, because the way this gets talked about online is incredibly misleading. If you just scroll social media, then you'd think that Washington is emptying out and that everyone is moving to Idaho or Texas tomorrow. But the reality is that Washington's population is still growing. According to the Office of Financial Management's latest 2025 and 2026 report, Washington's population has hit roughly 8.12 million people. We added about 80,000 people in the last 12 months, and that is roughly 1% growth. Now, is that booming? No. In the 2010s, we were seeing massive growth, sometimes 2% a year. That was our boom era. Today, 1% is what we call mature growth, but it's very important to distinguish between slow growth and decline. Detroit declined, Cleveland declined, Washington is just slowing down, and there's a massive difference in what that does to your home value. In a declining market, you lose equity. In a slow growth market, like what we're in, you gain equity just at a normal pace, not a lottery-winning kind of pace like we saw over the last several years. However, the engine of that growth has completely broken, and this is the part that economists are actually really worried about. Historically, Washington grew because people had babies. We call that natural increase. But in 2026, natural increase has completely fallen off a cliff. Birth rates are down and our population is actually aging. In 2010, only about 12% of Washingtonians were over 65, and today that number is pushing 18%. In places like Jefferson County or Clallam County, popular retirement spots, it's even higher, pushing 30 or even 40% of the total population. So we aren't growing because we're having kids. We're growing only because people are moving here. And that makes our real estate market incredibly sensitive to one thing: migration. If the moving trucks stop coming, our growth stops, period. This brings us to the most critical part of this video. If you take nothing else away, remember this phrase: the Great Exchange. Washington is currently trading populations. It's a demographic swap. On the one side, we have domestic outmigration. This means that when you look at people moving within the United States, Washington is losing. More people are moving from Washington to Arizona than from Arizona to Washington. In the Seattle metro areas, which include King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties, we lost a net of about 11,000 to 15,000 residents to other states last year. That creates the headline that Seattle is shrinking, but that is only half the math. On the other side, we have international immigration. While we were losing 15,000 people to Idaho and Texas, the Seattle metro gained nearly 64,000 people from outside our country. Think about that. So for every one person who packs up a U-Haul to move to Boise, 4 people are landing at SeaTac with a work visa or a student visa or permanent residency. This fundamentally changes who your buyer is, and it changes the economics of the state. The person leaving is often a retiree. They're taking their wealth with them, but they're no longer earning a high salary. Or it's a middle-class family who's been priced out of the area and they're leaving because they can't afford to stay. But the person arriving? They are the opposite. They are often a high-income tech worker or an engineer or a medical professional. They're moving here specifically for a job that pays $200,000 a year or more. So even though we might be losing long-time residents, we are gaining high-income earners. This is why prices in the suburbs of Seattle aren't crashing. The demand is still there. It just has a different accent, a different passport, and a higher qualifying income. Now, I want to add another layer to the who is leaving conversation that almost no one talks about. It's not just homeowners leaving, it's the landlords. We are experiencing the landlord exodus. When these small landlords sell, 2 things happen. First, that rental unit often gets removed from the rental pool, which drives up rent prices for everyone else. Second, it adds inventory to the sales market, but often in a condition that needs work because tired landlords often haven't updated the kitchen since 1990. So if you're seeing a lot of for sale signs on older and smaller homes, that's often why. It's a regulatory exodus and not just a lifestyle one for landlords. So let's talk about the people who are leaving. Where are they going? Well, we track the driver's license surrender data, and that's when you move to a new state and trade your Washington ID, and the patterns are crystal clear. The reasons might actually surprise you, and the reality of where they're landing isn't always a fairy tale. Destination number 1 is the Sun Belt, specifically Arizona and Texas. Maricopa County, Arizona, and that's the Phoenix and Scottsdale area, if you will, is one of the top destinations for King County sellers. Why? It's the math. You sell your home in Redmond for $1.2 million and you buy a home in Phoenix for $700,000 with a pool, and you bank $500,000 tax-free if you're married, and you never shovel snow again. But there's a catch here. We're starting to see what I call the boomerang effect. So we're seeing people who moved to Arizona in 2022 and they're coming back. Why? Because the summer electric bill for air conditioning is $600 a month, and because homeowners insurance costs are absolutely skyrocketing, and because it's 115 degrees 4 months straight and they miss the green. But here's the tragedy, really, of the boomerang effect. When they try to come back, they realize they can't afford their old neighborhood anymore. They sold in 2022 and prices in Washington kept ticking up, and now they're priced out of the market that they left just a few years ago. Destination number 2 is the politics and freedom move to Idaho. So Kootenai County, which is Coeur d'Alene, and Ada, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, County, which is Boise, remain massive draws for people. The migration is driven less by jobs and more by cultural alignment. We hear this constantly from sellers. They say, I just don't feel like Washington represents my values anymore. These sellers are trading the Puget Sound for the mountain lifestyle out in Idaho. But be careful here too. The locals in Idaho are not always thrilled to see Washington license plates. Far from it. We have had clients actually move there and then they found out that they, being Washingtonians, were blamed for driving up the prices in Boise. There is a real go back to California kind of sentiment in Idaho, but it's often go back to Washington. And also realize that while Idaho is cheaper, the wages are actually significantly lower on the whole. So unless you're bringing a remote Washington salary with you, the local economy in Idaho might not support the lifestyle that you're used to. Destination number 3 is the tax flight to Nevada or Texas and Florida. This is driven by the fact that Washington has no state income tax yet, but we do have a high sales tax and now a capital gains tax. States like Texas and Florida also have no income tax, but you have to look at the whole tax bill. Texas has some of the highest property taxes in the nation. In Washington, your property tax bill might be 1% of your home value, but in Texas, it can be 2.5% or higher. If you buy $1 million home in Austin, your annual tax bill could be $25,000. Yowza. In Washington, however, that same home might cost you $10,000 in taxes. Over 10 years, that is a $150,000 difference. So you have to do the math on the total cost of living and not just the income tax line. Now I know what you're thinking, but Leah, aren't all the Californians ruining absolutely everything? It's honestly the favorite complaint of every single Washington local. Don't California my Washington. The data shows that California is still the #1 source of new residents for Washington. In the last year of full census data, we saw about 35,000 to 40,000 Californians move here, and we helped several of them. However, that number is slowing down. In 2021, it was a total flood, but today it's just a stream. Why? Because the arbitrage isn't as good as it used to be. In 2019, you could sell a shack in San Jose and buy a mansion somewhere in Seattle. But today, Seattle prices have risen so much that the gap has closed significantly. It's still cheaper here than the Bay Area, but it's not half price anymore. So yes, Californians are still coming, but the ones coming in 2026 are usually moving for a specific job at Amazon or Microsoft, and they're not just blindly throwing darts at a map. They're coming because the cloud computing capital of the world is right here, and they need to be in the office. Remember at the beginning of this video where I told you there was one demographic shift that completely contradicts the Washington is dying narrative? Well, here it is. While boomers and Gen X tend to be leaving, Washington is actually a magnet for Gen Z. One national study ranked that Washington is in the top 5 states for net Gen Z migration, focusing on ages 18 to 24. Why? Because despite the complaints about the cost, Seattle offers higher paying jobs. If you're 22 years old and you want a career in AI or cloud computing or biotech or clean energy, you just come to Seattle. But it's not just the jobs, it's also the lifestyle. The things that drive a 50-year-old conservative out of the state are exactly the same things that pull a 20-something-year-old liberal into the state. I want to pause here and ask you a question, and I know this is controversial. Do you think this shift, trading older, established families for young, ambitious tech workers, is good for the long-term health of Washington? Or are we losing our soul? Let me know down in the comments below, and I really want to take your read on this. These young people aren't buying $1.5 million homes yet. They're renting on Capitol Hill, or they're buying condos in Belltown. But give them about 5 years or so, and they are the future buyers of your single-family home. This is a critical demographic shift that we're experiencing here. We're trading old money for new ambition, if you will. A city that attracts young people is a city that actually has a future. And a city that only attracts retirees is a city that eventually slows down and dies. Washington is still attracting the youth, and that is a very bullish signal for long-term real estate values. We also have to talk about the migration happening inside the state. We're seeing a massive eastward shift. People are cashing out of King and Snohomish counties, and they're moving to Spokane, or the Tri-Cities, and Ellensburg. And why? Well, first off, and most importantly, it's affordability. You can still buy a great house in Spokane for $450,000. And for a family struggling, say in Kent or Everett, that is a life-changing difference. Second is the weather. They want 4 real seasons. And third is the politics. Eastern Washington offers a much more politically conservative environment that appeals to a lot of sellers leaving the West Side. But there's another internal migration happening. It's the Ferry Commute migration. We're seeing a surge of interest in Kitsap County, which is Bremerton, Kingston, and Bainbridge. And as Seattle gets more and more expensive, people are willing to take the fast ferry in order to get to work. You can buy a Waterview home in Bremerton for half the price of a Waterview home in West Seattle. And the trade-off is the boat ride. For many, a 40-minute boat ride with beer is better than a 60-minute drive in traffic on I-5. One final factor for 2026 is the return to office. This is the trend that killed the Zoom town, if you will. In 2021 and 2022, everyone thought that they could work from a cabin in Cle Elum or a beach house in Ocean Shores forever. But Amazon and Starbucks and others have actually finally cracked down. The quote, 5 days a week mandates are real. This has actually stopped some of the bleeding inside of the city. In 2022, tech workers moved to, say, Cle Elum because they only had to commute in once a month. Now, They're selling those houses in Cle Elum and they're moving back to Issaquah and Bellevue because they can't do that drive every single day. It's just impossible. But there is a nuance here, the quote, hybrid worker. There are still many companies that are settling on 3 days in the office, and this creates a quote, super commute zone, if you will. You can't live in Chelan, but you can live in Marysville or Lake Stevens. You can deal with a 90-minute commute if you only do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This is keeping the outer suburbs alive and well, and places like Stanwood, Arlington, Bonnie Lake, and more are being sustained by this type of hybrid worker who wants a big yard and is willing to suffer the commute a few days a week. So what does all of this mean if you plan on selling this year? Well, number one, stop marketing to the wrong buyer. If you have, for example, a $900,000 home in Snohomish County, your buyer is likely not a retiree. It's likely a young millennial couple or an H-1B visa holder that's transferring for tech. Now, the question is, does your marketing speak to them? Is your home smart home ready? Is it staged for a more modern aesthetic, or does it look like you still are in 1995? You need to style your home for the person coming in and not the person moving out. Number two, the cash out move actually requires some serious strategy. So if you're one of those people that's planning to sell here and move to Arizona or Idaho, you have to nail the timing. The markets in Arizona and Texas are a lot softer than ours right now, and inventory is piling up in Phoenix. And this, of course, is actually good news for you if you're moving there. You're selling in a tighter market here in Washington State, and you're buying in a much softer market out, say, in Arizona. You might actually have more buying power there than you realize. But how do you do it? You need to understand the contingent sale. This is where you make an offer on a house, say in Idaho, that is contingent on your Washington home selling. In a hot market, sellers on the other side absolutely hate these, but in a cooling market, which say parts of Idaho are actually experiencing right now, sellers might accept it. And we help clients structure this dance all the time. It involves bridge loans and rent backs and very tight coordination between your agent here and your agent there. Do not, please try to wing this. Number three, don't believe the crash hype. Remember the numbers. We grew by 80,000 people in 2025, and the people leaving are being replaced by people earning higher wages. That is not a recipe for a crash. That is a recipe for a high-cost, competitive floor for real estate. Also, think about the lock-in effect. 80% of homeowners in Washington have a mortgage rate under 4%. They are not selling unless they absolutely have to. This keeps inventory permanently low. Even if demand drops, supply is dropping with it. That prevents prices from crashing. Stepping back, here is the main takeaway. The story is not that everyone is leaving. The story is that Washington is maturing. We're trading populations. We are seeing a shift from easy growth to economic migration. We're seeing a regulatory shift that's pushing out small landlords. We're seeing a generational shift where Gen Z is actually replacing boomers. And if you're watching this and you're wrestling with whether to stay in Washington or move within Washington or leave the state entirely, that is a conversation that we have with clients every single day. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. I promise you that. It completely depends on your equity, your risk tolerance, and where you want to wake up every single morning. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the numbers, please be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a new video about life in Washington State. And if you're planning on buying or selling a home, whether in the North Puget Sound, somewhere else in Washington State, or outside of Washington to begin with, we would love to chat with you. Our contact information is below, and we would be truly honored to help you make your next move in or around Washington or outside and to Washington with confidence. Thank you again so much for watching. Keep exploring, and we will see you in the next video.